This photograph will only exist 10 times. Well, if I'm honest, 11 times, because I'll keep an artist proof one copy for myself. But in the edition, there will only be 10 ever made. And that decision is intentional. Same for this image. It will only exist no more than 11 times. One for my portfolio, which will never be sold, and 10 times in the edition. Every image I produce now will be released in a limited edition. Once that edition is complete, no further prints will ever be made. That's a promise from me. And this isn't a marketing strategy, it's a philosophical one. So let's talk about it. So it seems my video about limited edition prints doesn't mean they're limited edition videos. I recorded this earlier this morning in the back room of my house where the beginning of this video emanated from. But it was a rainy morning and it kept getting dark and light and dark and light. And my face would get really bright, then it would get really dark, and I tried fixing it and it just wasn't working. So let's try and record this again. I know this isn't ideal, but we're going to give it a shot. I came to the conclusion, or the decision, that I didn't want to sell prints anymore. What I wanted, or what I want, is for others to want to collect my prints. And there's a big difference there. I've mentioned that I joined this art league, and the boat picture that you saw earlier, I've hung in the gallery a couple of times. There's been several people that have come up to me and say, oh, I love that, it reminds me of this, it reminds me of that. I'd really like to own that image, that print. And I always just kind of give it a little bit of a giggle or a smirk and say, well, it is for sale on the wall. Well, it's kind of expensive. I really can't afford it right now, maybe in the future. But if I could get a better price, and then I'm thinking, you know what? You're not who I want to own that image. I'm sorry. There's only going to be 10 that are going to be sold. And if you're going to quibble about the price, you're not one of the people who I want to have one of those 10 images. I'm sorry. I don't tell them that, but that's what I'm thinking in my mind. So I generally just say, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe if you save your money, it'll be up again another time, and maybe you can afford it. And I move on. And it gets to the point where I just don't want to diminish my work anymore. And I know many of you who are watching understand you might have to travel far away, spend a lot of money. You carry a lot of gear. You have expertise in what you're doing on how to get that shot, how to process it, and then on top of it, how to make it into a platinum print. I don't want to devalue that anymore. I want people to appreciate it for what they are. And how do you get them to appreciate it maybe even a little bit more? Well, you make it a limited edition print. You say, well, there's only going to be 10 of them. There's only going to be 5 of them. Maybe there's only going to be 3 of them. There's a lady here on YouTube who I follow. She's a pretty good photographer. I enjoy her work, Lynn Jones. And a couple of years ago, I think it was around Christmas time, she put out a little book, a zine, and she only offered, it was maybe 15, 20, 30 at the most. I think it was 20 though. And I think she surprised herself in how quickly she sold those little books. And I tried to buy one. I think I contacted her the day the video came out, but by the time I had contacted her, she responded the next day because she's a Brit and I'm here in America. Maybe by the time I saw it, she was already sleeping. But anyway, by the next day, she had already sold them out. Now, she easily could have printed another 20 or 30 of them. She admitted that she had other people who wanted them, but she held firm in that she had signed and numbered, whatever the number was, 20 of them. And that was going to be it. And I really respect her for that. I'm glad that she did that. I'd rather her do that than me not have one of the books. There's another fellow on here who did it, and he put out a book, and I won't say his name, but I believe the number was 300, which isn't really, you know, that limited. But when you're sending away and you have all these costs, yeah, it reduces your cost if you print a lot more books. I get that. Most of the people want to print at least 5 to maybe even 1,000 books to get the cost down. So I get it. But by the same token, he said, yeah, there's only going to be 300. I'm going to sign and number them. And he did, and I bought one. And again, I think he surprised himself at how quickly he sold them out. Only he did a second edition. And he never even said how many were in the second edition. So I have no idea how many of those 300 books turned into 500, 600, 700 books. I don't know. But if he ever does that again, I won't buy it, because I've lost trust. And so I know that when I say there's only going to be 10 or 5 or 3, whatever that number is, that's what it's going to be. I'm not going to go beyond that. Not every print I make will make it. In the video I made this morning, I showed a whole pile of prints that were workup prints. You know, no one's ever going to own them, no one's ever going to see them. Eventually I'll trash them. But I keep them now because I have markings on them as to what chemicals I used to make it look like that. And as I got closer and closer, I have stored all the markings, and that's one of the reasons why I keep them. I also have some that, even though I got them the way I wanted them, in the end I decided I really didn't want to sell that print. I didn't feel it was good enough. And so, despite all the work, it's not ever going to be available for sale. And so a large percentage of the ones I work on are never going to be sold. Or even some of the ones that I print. Because if there's any kind of smudge or anything in the print, I'm not going to sell it. So it has to be a good print, which makes them even more limited. So scarcity and limited edition only means something if you're going to stick to it. And I intend to stick to it. Now, I'm not saying that in the future I'm going to limit my prints to only 10. I might come out with an image and say, all right, well, this one's going to be 15. I don't think so. I think I'm going to stick to 10 as the highest number. But I will say, if one of them is marked 10, then it's going to stay 10. In other words, I'm not going to sell 8 of them and go, well, you know what, maybe I'll make it 15. Because they're all going to be dated and signed and numbered and come with a letter of authenticity anyway, so you can't go back and change it. And I wouldn't do it anyway. But I think 10 is going to be the number I'm going to settle on for most of them, which is pretty limited. In the past, I used to collect baseball cards, you know, and these card companies would come out and say, well, it's limited edition. There's only 5,000 of these cards. 5,000! To me, that's not limited edition. 10 is a limited edition, in my mind. Some people might even say 5 or 3. But to me, 10 is a good number. There are a couple of my images right now that there's only going to be 5 of, and there's one that's only in that size 3. Now, when I say that size, I do have one image. If you go back and look at the first video I did about platinum, the large heron photo, that one's going to come in 2 sizes. The larger size, I'm only going to make 3, and there's a smaller size, roughly 4x5, that there'll be 10. The rest of the images, there's only one size, and if it says there's one of 5 or one of 10, it's only going to be that size, and it'll only be 10. And that's generally how I'm going to do it. I don't see myself making multiple sizes in too many of these images. That might even be the only one that I do. When you collect one of my platinum prints, it's not going to be endlessly produced. I mean, that's part of the limited edition. I'm not going to sit here and just punch of them out, because each one of them is made by hand. They take time. It has to be good. Like I said, I've made some, which I showed in the video, that didn't work out. that some of them had little smudges on the end of the edges. When I applied the chemicals, or for whatever reason, the developer wasn't quite right, for whatever the reason, and so they can't be part of the 10. You know, they won't be part of the edition. Now, I don't print all 10 advance. I might print 2. I'll print an artist proof that I'll keep for myself, and then I might print number 1 of 10. On rare occasion, I think I've printed the artist proof and then number 1 and number 2, but I don't go beyond that. If someone were to order one, I will go in the darkroom and make that print, unless there are a few of them that are still at number 1. If you buy that one, or as I should say, if you acquire that one, then that'll be the one. But I don't have 10 of 10 made on any of them. The reason why I'm doing this is because, again, I don't want people to buy my prints. And I know it sounds weird, but it's a mindset. I want people to want to collect my prints, to collect my images, and understand the work that went in to creating that image. I want them to appreciate it. I want them to understand how much I had to go through to get it. I want them to value it as much as I do. And if you do that, then I'll be more than happy to let you acquire one of my prints. Might sound cocky, might sound conceited, but I think real collectors understand that. They know where I'm coming from. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for you. Because a platinum print will last for many generations, it could be given as a gift. I've mentioned a couple times where I've made a couple for my grandkids now, where I've only made the 1. 2 if you want to count the workup print that I still have. But essentially, I only printed 1 other copy, and they have them. And they're too young to understand, but I've told them they're going to pass them down to their kids, and maybe their kids will pass it down to their kids. And it will last for several generations if they keep it around and they don't abuse it. Because a print will last as long as the paper's going to last. And I use really good Hammermühle fine art paper that should last a long time. And one of the secrets is, after you make the print, is to really wash it really well. There is a clearing bath, and you have to wash those prints out. Otherwise, they turn yellow over time. After about 20, 30 years, they'll start to yellow. But if you really wash them out really well, which I do, I've learned that lesson over time, they won't do that. They'll last. So I want to make sure that if I were to sell something, that it's done properly. Anyway, that's my thought on limited editions. I think it's the way to go, at least for me, at this present time. And I think that I'm only going to sell platinum prints. So if you take a look at my website, you're going to see the ones that are available. The other thing is that the images that are available will change from time to time. I have 2 of them that I'm thinking about making. I'm going to put them up on the screen now. I haven't printed them in platinum yet. I took these in Banff National Park a few months ago, and I'm still considering whether I'm going to make them into platinum prints or not, which is another thing. Sometimes I think it might look good, and then I decide I don't want to make it. I had another one where I took in Iceland, where it took me a long time to get the print right. For whatever reason, I was really struggling, because there was a really wide tonal range in that image, and I had a hard time getting just one to look right. So I decided not to sell it. I decided not to print anymore. I'm just going to keep that one for myself. It's of Kirkefell and Kirkefoss, and I'm going to keep that one. It's kind of an image that, if you're familiar with Iceland, everybody takes anyway. So I'm just going to keep that. So that limits it as well. And there are ones that I do work up that in the end I decide, not that I don't want to sell them, but I don't want to sell them because I don't think that they really turned out as well as I had expected. In other words, even after all the work I'm just not going to sell them. Anyway, that's my thought about limited editions. Go to my website, take a look. If you have any questions, any thoughts, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to get back to you. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.